GATA's Adrian Douglas has done extensive research into the paper manipulation of gold and silver. But the precious metals world changed overnight when Jeffrey Christian from CPM Group made this startling admission at the CFTC hearing in March.
And people will say, well, and you've heard it today, there's not that much physical metal out there. There isn't. But in the physical market, as the market uses that term, there is much more metal than that. There's 100 times what there is.
Now we know based on the testimony of Jeffrey Christian that everything that's true for gold is true for silver, and silver may be even more suppressed than gold.
Precious metals are financial assets, and like currencies and T-bills and T-bonds, they trade in the multiples of 100 times the underlying physical. They trade in the multiples of 100 times the underlying physical.
Adrian Douglas's research leads him to conclude that the actual outstanding paper metals manipulation in gold is 45 to 1, meaning there's 45 ounces of gold sold for every 1 physical ounce in the vault, which multiplies the apparent gold supply 45 times, therefore suppressing price to what we see today.
The supply of gold has been artificially increased by this paper gold to what I think is something like 45 times the actual supply. So that means that when that is exposed and people are asking for gold that isn't there, the potential is that gold's purchasing power will be multiplied by 45 times, in rough terms.
There are 45 times as many ounces sold as there exists in the bullion banks. So what's the price of gold for the bullion banker? $56,000 an ounce, because he sold 45 ounces total, but only 1 physical ounce. He received $56,000 per physical ounce. Now the U.S. government claims it has 261.5 million ounces of gold left in their reserves. So let's take them at face value and assume the gold isn't encumbered, which Douglas believes it most likely is. But let's say it's not. People say the dollar is backed by nothing. But that's not actually true. It's actually backed by that gold the government claims is in reserves. Now, let's consider the dollar. We've issued $14 trillion against 261.5 million ounces of gold. If you do the division, that comes to $56,000 an ounce, the exact same number as the LBMA selling 45 times as much gold as they've got. Douglas concludes the banks have to sell 45 times more gold than they've got in order to suppress the price of gold and artificially preserve the purchasing power of the dollar.
Typically, gold protects your wealth, but this time it's different. I think what's important for investors to understand is that you will probably be able to buy 45 times more cars or 45 times more houses or 45 times more loaves of bread with your gold than you can today.
According to Adrian Douglas, gold should be at $56,000 an ounce, and Jeffrey Christian admits to 100 times the paper as there is to physical.
Precious metals are financial assets. They trade in the multiples of 100 times the underlying physical.
But let's just go with Adrian Douglas's math. Now, Adrian Douglas is making the argument that at gold's current price, it should be multiplied by 45 times to get the true value of gold. Let's go with that and let's apply it to silver. At a closing price of $20.80, if you multiply that number by 45 times, we will get to an unsuppressed silver price of $936 an ounce. However, we know that silver is more likely further suppressed than gold because it's a much smaller market. We can apply silver's all-time high of $50 an ounce, since gold is currently at its all-time high. And we take $50 an ounce times 45, we get $2,250 an ounce for silver. Now remember, there is such a minuscule supply of precious metals in the physical form, backing all of the fiat currencies on the planet, that these numbers, as pie in the sky as they may seem at first blush, if you really think about it and you think about how rare it is for a person to hold physical in their own possession, these numbers start to make a lot of sense.
That is where I see the big payout for investors. This manipulation has artificially increase the gold supply. When that disappears, you're not going to be protecting your wealth, you're going to be multiplying it by some large factor, whether it's 45 or 20 or 50, I don't know, but it's going to be something of that magnitude.
Got physical? Thanks for watching The Curious Case for $936 an ounce silver.